that's okay. But I'm just gonna thank you guys for being here, and I want to kind of guess that you're here for the autoimmune part of this, right? Yeah, I mean, some of that. Well, you can tell me. And you know, I read some of the information that many of you inputted into the computer there, and I know some of you guys have fibromyalgia, autoimmune disease. Some of you guys just want to learn, which is good. That's great. So you're in the right place. I do these workshops every month, and you know, I've been doing these workshops for probably about 25 years now.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and I'm still doing it, so I must enjoy it.
Yes.
So that's why we're here. But this is going to be a little bit new and exciting as far as the autoimmune goes. Is there anything in particular you really want me to hit the bullseye on tonight? You know, I want to personalize this for you guys. Anything that you could think of?
The fatigue and the hormones, I can definitely relate to that.
Fatigue and the hormones.
They're keywords
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
Anybody else want a little more energy?
For me.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, you got plenty of energy.
All of that.
Here,
Oh my
we
God.
could use some. Okay, so we're gonna hit on that. Anything else? Nothing else that you could think of?
Well, I know there is a relationship between the gut and depression, all kinds of mental illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting topic.
Absolutely, we're definitely gonna touch on that. We're gonna dig in pretty deep on that for sure. So we're gonna make sure you leave here with your cup full tonight. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm the one who came to learn.
Great. Keep learning, keep growing. Yeah, you're either learning and growing, or you're ripe and rotting. Somebody once said that, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we keep doing this. All right, so I know a little bit about you. Now I'm going to tell you about me. So I've been practicing plantation here for over 30 years. Family chiropractor, but I really also have a specialty in wellness and health challenges. And so that's what leads me to do many of these workshops. And I've written a couple of books, and my history goes back, traveling the world and bringing this message to as far and wide as I possibly can. Had a TV show, was on the radio for 20 years, and so here I am, still doing the same thing. Why? Because I had a life-changing experience with my dad. Won't get into all the details, but just kind of the long and the short is that he had migraine headaches every single day of his life, and he was on 6 different medications, and he was badly dysfunctional in terms of being a father, husband, and it was because of all of his sickness and suffering. And I watched him through a lot of what I'm going to teach you tonight. A lot of what you're going to learn about how the body actually can heal from a lot of these disorders. I watched him go from having a headache every day and being on 6 medications to having 0 headaches and off all his medications, and going from somebody that you would utterly hate with disgust to somebody that you couldn't help but just love, like the nicest person in the world. So it was a massive transformation. Changed his life, but it changed my life also. And I watched this happen, and from there, I just took it upon myself. From what I learned, I saw the potential that it could help so many people, and so that's why I do what I do. So that kind of goes along with this crazy belief that chiropractors have called salutogenesis. I don't know if you've ever heard that word before, but it just means that the focus really is not on treating disease. The focus really is more on what's right with a person, what creates health, and how do you support that? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
How many of you guys believe that you were born to be healthy? How many of you guys would agree with that, right? The body's smart. The body knows how to heal itself. And when there's a problem, it's not because you don't have a lack of anything or something's missing. So we need to focus on what's right and what we can do better, and actually remove the interferences from allowing the body to know what it was really kind of created to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what that is. And some of you guys have been to chiropractors, some of you guys haven't. But I think we all are old enough to remember when chiropractors were thought maybe kind of to be quacks, right? I come from a family of medical doctors, and all my dad ever told me was, don't go to chiropractic school, you want to be a real doctor. And I'm glad it was my dad, because he was the first one in my family to have his life changed through using chiropractic in a way that comes down to really not so much chiropractic, but really the neurology behind it. So everything I'm going to talk to you about tonight really has less to do with chiropractic and more to do with the neurology and the connection between all these things that stops people from healing and functioning properly. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the direction that I want to move in with all this, so that you have a really good understanding. Everything that I'm going to talk to you about tonight is based on science, literature, research. It's got nothing to do with my opinion. If anything is my opinion, I'll let you know. But I'm going to ask you to just suspend whatever beliefs that you have, any doubts, any judgments about, who I am, my background, my training, because none of that's really going to enter the picture when it comes to the information that I'm going to present to you tonight. I'm just going to ask you to just kind of tuck it under your chair, whatever it is. Forget that it's there. Let me open the door to this new possibilities of the potential for a healthier life. And then when we're done, if you want to take those beliefs with you, that's fine. It won't hurt my feelings. All right, fair enough? So let's go right into this. Before I forget, also, there's a lot of information tonight, and we have an hour or less, and I'm not going to be able to, give you all that I've got, 30 years worth of knowledge. So you'll be receiving emails. There's about 19 different emails. It'll allow you to continue to learn and build on some of these things. You can unsubscribe to them if you want, but it's designed to help you to continue to learn and follow some of these things that you learned tonight, okay? Either way, listen, if you never step foot in this office again, the information that you're gonna have tonight is gonna be life-changing. I can promise you that. So we're gonna cover what's going on, why, and then really what's next? What do we do to solve some of these problems here? Autoimmune diseases and disorders. 50 million Americans have autoimmune disorders. Honestly, I think that's underreported. I think that's more than that from what I've read. There's 300% increase in autoimmune conditions over the past few decades. More prevalent in women, 75% more prevalent in women. Men do get it, but interesting that really there's a high concentration in the childbearing years for women. 1 out of 9 women in childbearing years. 100 billion spent money-wise on the treatment for these issues. And what experts are now saying, and the research is showing, is a high correlation that has to do with genetics and environmental factors, right? So what is an autoimmune disease? Why do you develop an autoimmune disease? When somebody has an autoimmune disease, what's happening to the body? It's doing what to itself? It's attacking itself. Very good, yeah. Why does that happen? Where does it usually come from? Stress, a lot. I mean, anybody here not have stress? No, we all do. But it's not so much the stress that gets to it, it's how your body is processing that stress. And everybody processes it differently. We have different genetics, we have different environment, different factors, and we want to talk about some of that tonight. Some people develop it with their brain. Some people, it expresses it in the blood. Some people in the GI system, nerves, respiratory system, skin, muscles, bones, thyroid. How a person expresses their symptoms in a disease is vastly different from the next person. Everybody's genetic makeup is different, and how their system processes it is different. But again, if we can dial back into the causes, then sometimes we can reverse engineer it and undo and unwind some of these issues. Contributing factors, the two biggest ones that researchers are pointing to, anxiety and depression. So we all know how common this is today. It's the most common mental illness in the United States, 40 million adults. Kids too, one out of 8 kids, 9 million kids have an anxiety disorder. It's really, really sad. Different days we are living in. Depression is the #1 cause of disability worldwide. I've seen more depressed adults and more depressed kids and more kids on antidepressants than I've ever seen before. How many of you guys are aware of that? And it almost seems like we run out of treatment options, and parents don't know where to turn. They're so upset. there are options that we're going to talk about tonight. It affects over 18 million adults. It's 1 out of 10 every year. And what is research now linking depression to? What we're going to talk about tonight. The gut-brain axis. When I say the word axis, hang on to that because I'm going to circle back, okay? Continuing with this depression, 1 out of 33 children, 1 out of 8 adolescents. So when we talk about all this chronic illness, every year, $2.3 trillion. That's what we're talking about. 70% of all deaths are from chronic health conditions, and 50% have at least one chronic health condition. I went to my high school reunion 7, 8 years ago. It was our 30th. So I just told you my age there. And I remember seeing all my friends that I went to elementary school with. And I was shocked at how many of them were on prescription medication for chronic health conditions. Like at 47 years old. Most of them were either on diabetic medications and high blood pressure. And it just seemed like it was so common that it's normal, that that's what everybody does.
It's acceptable.
It's acceptable, yeah. The interesting thing is when you leave the United States, it's not that common. It's really not as common as that in here in the United States. So when we look at all these statistics, I'm not there to give you thought about the numbers. The point that we need to understand is that we don't have just like a rise in autoimmune diseases. We have a rise in a sick society. Our children are sicker than ever. Our families are sicker than ever. We're going to more doctors than ever. We take more medications in this country than any other country in the world. We spend more on healthcare per capita in this country, per person, than any other country in the world. We have the best doctors. We have the best hospitals. Why are we so sick? That's the question that needs to be answered. So let's look at this a different way. Everybody, most of you guys drove here tonight, right? You got here with a car. And cars are getting smarter and smarter these days, right? They can almost drive themselves. But still, in all, they need parts, right? And they need power. But what does that car need in order to move, in order to drive? It can't drive itself. It needs a human being. It needs information. It needs intelligence. Even the Teslas, we're finding out, sometimes make mistakes. They can't drive themselves. You need actual intelligence. And a computer right now is still limited. We have computers today that we can literally hold in our hands. But still, what do computers need? Same thing. They need parts. They need power, right? Electricity for the computer. But also, what does a computer need? It needs information. Okay, you can have hardware, but that computer can't do anything unless you run a what through it? A program, the software. So we need intelligence. And that intelligence has to be expressed through whether a car, a computer, or a person. Right? So what do living systems need to work? They need parts, they need power. We have lots of parts, doctors, to take care of our bodies, right? You got a shoulder doctor, you got a knee doctor, you got a heart doctor, you know, this doctor, that doctor, right? And now a lot of doctors and a lot of people are looking at the power, right? Thank goodness, like nutrition and toxicity, right? But what about information? What are we talking about with information? You saw the car, you saw the computer. What about, how does that apply to what we're talking about with the human body?
The human component.
The brain, well, actually, you're getting close. What is the brain? The brain's actually a part. A dead person has a brain also.
You need a soul.
What?
A soul.
A soul. Soul, or in some sort of inborn wisdom. Yeah. Some sort of innate intelligence that resides in the brain, that uses your brain and your nervous system, that flows in and over it to animate you as a human being, to use the power and the parts, and animate you as a living being. Without that intelligence, there's no life. Again, you can look at a dead person. A dead person has a brain. A dead person has a heart, lungs, liver, spleen. A dead person does not have life. Is this making sense so far? I'm going somewhere with this, so stay with me. So when you look at something that has life, something as simple as a plant, it has parts, but parts are designed eventually to break down. What happens if you take away the parts, power, information from the plant? right? Let's say it gets less light. Let's say the soil doesn't have enough nutrients, or maybe there's toxicity there. What happens to the plant? It's going to wilt over, right? You're going to see it's not right. It's not well. So that has life that's not being expressed because of interference there, right? Well, it's the same thing with a human being. What happens if you mess with the parts or the power of a human being, of an intelligent being? Now you're messing with the essentials for life: light, movement, right? Nutrition, nutrients, or that power that's coming through it. If it's deficient, if there's an interference in that, what's going to happen? You're going to have symptoms. No different than the plant that's wilting over and dying. There are symptoms. Autoimmune system, the symptoms, fibromyalgia, pains, inflammation, aches, depression, fatigue, bloating, all those symptoms, right? But again, that's the effect. That's the effect of when we interfere with what causes a person to be healthy. That health comes from the inside out, not from the outside in. It has to flow from above down. And of course, all the systems and parts have to be working correctly. So, this was taken from Dr. Paul Hardy. Calls it the autism quadrangle. And he published this in his book. He expounded on it. It's really been around since the 50s. But the reason why I wanted you to look at this is that you understand that autoimmune diseases and diseases in general are really whole body problems. It's really not just one thing that you can put your finger on. When you look at a person's genetics, I have certain genes which don't allow my body to detoxify, maybe as well as you. You might have certain genes in your body that predispose you to plaquing of your arteries. You might have certain genes that predispose you to not being able to process carbohydrates properly. And you might have certain genes in you that you got from your parents, like they're all passed down, which would predispose you to having more inflammation. Now, whether or not you express those genes that were given to you or not is not based on your destiny or written into your future. It's based on something called epigenetics. Raise your hand if you've heard of epigenetics. Okay, epigenetics is basically these little tags on the genes that are like levers. And based on your environment, toxins, bad food choices, stress, those levers get pulled to either turn those genes on, right, and promote those bad genes to develop diabetes, inflammation, or heart disease or cancer, or turn them off. So your environment really determines all that. So the genes are important because the genes gives you the picture, basically the canvas that your life is going to paint, right? And then what happens is you have all these systems that it plays through. Your nervous system is processing that. Your immune system is processing that. Your detox system is processing that. And your GI system is processing that. Now, it's interesting that a medical doctor came up with this. Why do you think he put the nervous system at the top? Because it's the one system that controls and coordinates and harmonizes all bodily function and healing. Right? Right or right? Okay. So, when you have all these systems, and you have problems with any one of these systems, it's going to affect the genetic expression. And what's going to set that off is the stressors in your environment. We have mental stress. What kind of mental stress? Work. Yeah. What else? Cell phones, family, health, finances. What else? Media. Yeah. Social, especially social media. So we have more mental stress today than ever. I think we're all aware of that. We don't have to beat that dead horse. But then we have chemical stress, right? What kind of chemical stress? What's that? Food. Yeah. What's in our water supply? What's that?
In our air.
Air supply, very good. Our cosmetics. Smoke. Yeah. All of these things. And it goes in, but the question is your body able to get it out faster than it's going in? Because if not, then you get a toxic burden. And when that part of the system right there is overloaded, then it starts working its way through, And the way that your body expresses itself finally comes to fruition. And what that does is that's going to drive something called oxidative stress, which causes inflammation. And inflammation can be traced really to the foundation of every disease that's diagnosed. Whether it's an autoimmune disease, heart disease, cancer, dementia, and Alzheimer's, all of those are related in some way, shape, or form to inflammation. Yeah. And that's just how your body expresses itself when it's overloaded. So we want to look at all this and say, okay, well, what can we do to support these systems? Not to treat the disease, because that's just the effect. What can we do to support these systems and strengthen your body so that it can do the best it can do with what you were given, right? You got to play the best hand that you were given. Another way to look at it is, you know, like we said, you have genetic, environmental stressors, and then we have something called the microbiome. Raise your hand if you've heard of the microbiome. You know what the microbiome is, right? All right, so that's your gut. Gut's very important for your health, you know that. And if we start to deplete the microbiome or damage it, then that is a causative factor for that disease process to start to be expressed. Now, what are some things that can cause the depletion of the microbiome? Let's actually start at the birth process. Now, first sampling of the microbiome, where the child gets it from, is coming through the birth canal. So if we miss that, then the child is not starting off with the advantages of having a normal microbiome. Some doctors are actually taking samples from the birth canal and actually putting it into the mouth of the children to start that when they come through C-section. They know how important this is. Did you know that? Yeah. You know that? Oh.
I've been doing this for more than 30 years.
Wonderful, wonderful. So there you have it. That's confirmation. So you guys know that this is cutting edge stuff. I mean, in the state of Florida, maybe you know, the last I heard, C-section rate was over 50%.
I've been practicing in Mexico. I just moved to the United States. But the C-section rate in Mexico is very high also.
Very high, and it's high in Florida. It's over 50%. I know
Is
that.
that because people are choosing C-sections? I mean, I know not all the
No,
time they're
because
able to
doctors
choose. I
are
know
afraid
sometimes
of
they
the
have to,
lawsuits.
but is it just that they don't want to do a normal vaginal birth?
It has to do with litigation, malpractice, and also something to do with really having more control over that process and event, and scheduling and things like that. But the problem is that there's so many advantages and that the kids are missing out on. So we had all our babies at home. I knew a lot of this stuff when I was going through school. I was fortunate enough to learn about that. And we had midwives. We had an OBGYN that we would visit. We met like once or twice just in case there was an emergency. But the midwife did everything. I took care of my wife. I adjusted her all throughout pregnancy, all throughout labor, and all of our boys were over 10 pounds. We don't make them small in our house. Yeah. My boys are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5".
Oh, wow.
But they were all born in our bedroom, our living room floor, and it doesn't have to be a medical event. And you know, in third world countries, they're just, you know, squat, pelvic outlet opens 20% greater, and let gravity do all the work instead of somebody using force and possibly causing injury. But at any rate, C-section, antibiotics also wipes out the good bacteria. That, and then drugs. It doesn't have to be recreational drugs, but even prescription drugs affect the microbiome. Poor diet, right? We know that. Sugar, things like that. Chronic stress affects your microbiome. Alcohol, these things you guys know, right? Altered vagal tone. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. Has anybody heard of vagal tone, the vagus nerve?
Yeah, Vegas.
Okay,
Very
good.
important.
That's a big, important part of what we're going to cover tonight, so I'm going to circle back to that. So when you affect the microbiome, when that happens, we start to look at something called leaky gut. Basically, that's a label that's put on the expression of those symptoms. It doesn't give you the cause of the problem, but it tells you that, okay, you're expressing a lot of the symptoms that could be traced back to this. If leaky gut continues to progress and it gets bad enough, we start to have serious autoimmune reactions. Allergies, brain inflammation, the blood-brain barrier, which is supposed to be protecting your brain from toxins and bacteria and viruses can get compromised. And then we experience something called, now they call this leaky brain, which is far more horrendous as far as what it does to your health. So again, coming down to a lot of the nutritional deficiencies, metabolic toxicity, and this is kind of the path that it goes. So how do we address some of these things? Right. I mean, what does leaky gut actually mean? What is your gut doing?
It has holes in it,
Yeah.
so the food is not going through the intestinal wall the correct way. It's going out into the bloodstream.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's leaking. Your gut is actually leaking. So that's the microbiome. That's the surface of the intestinal wall. And you can see the normal cells have tight junctions, but the ones that are inflamed, you can see the actual shape of them have changed in the left room. So that wall is a barrier in your intestines. It's supposed to protect what goes in. Basically, it's protecting you from your external environment. From your mouth to your anus, you have that intestinal tract, which is protecting you from the outside world, the inside of your body. Bacteria, viruses, proteins, toxins. It's not supposed to permeate your gut and get into your bloodstream, right? But this is what happens, and it wreaks havoc at the surface there, and it causes inflammation, and that's what causes your body to attack itself. It knows there's a problem there. That's why the microbiome is so important, that we pay attention to this, that we heal this as far as the foundational place to start with any autoimmune system issue, any immune disease, really overall health in general. I mean, I've been taking probiotics. I look to have these types of foods in my diet. I've been doing this for a long time. It's vitally important. It's the foundation, one of the most foundational components of your nutritional regimen on a daily basis. And for this reason, you could say, this is where it all starts. And so quick facts. Did you know that 90% of the serotonin is made in your gut? Does everybody know what serotonin is? That happy feeling neurotransmitter. So again, this is where it can actually lead to depression if it throws off your neurotransmitters. This is why they call it the second brain. You know, long ago they thought that the serotonin was all made in the brain. It's not true. Most of it's made in the gut. Your immune system. 70% of your immune system in your digestive cells. Wow. Okay, so this is where things also tie into frequent colds, flus, cancer, increasing the risk of cancer. This is a big part of where that connection is. It contains 100 trillion bacteria, 500 to 1,000 different species. Wow. Everybody say, wow.
Wow.
You still awake? Are you still awake? Turn to your neighbor, punch him in the shoulder. So you're still awake. All right. So I want you to watch this here. This is based on the book.
So you think you're human? There's 7 billion people on this planet. You know how many microbes there are? 5 nonillion. 5 nonillion. That's the number of stars in the universe multiplied by 5 million. That's a lot of bacteria. And they're everywhere. They're on this floor, they're in your kitchen sink, they're on your chair, they're on your coffee cup. And yes, they're on you. You harbor 100 trillion bacteria in and on your body right now. That's only 1,000 times the number of individuals on this planet. And if you look at it in terms of cells, you are outnumbered 10 to 1. You are not human. You are a walking bacterial colony.
I think that point was well made. Right? Tells you how important your microbiome is, that we pay attention to this. There's a lot riding on it. All right, so if signs that you have leaky gut or confirmation, here you go: bloating, gas. Some of you guys came here. You want help with this. Cramps, food allergies and sensitivities, irritable bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome. They're similar, but they're not the same. Hormonal issues, PMS, PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, fibroid tumors, female reproductive issues, thyroid problems, joint pain, skin conditions, acne, inflammatory conditions, all traceable to leaky gut. Chronic fatigue, this really where it starts to spill over and accelerate through leaky brain. Fibromyalgia, brain fog, mood issues, anxiety, depression, attention deficit disorder, hyperactivity disorder, neurodevelopmental issues, autism, things like that for kids, autoimmune diseases. So that's a lot. That's a lot. You could easily encompass the vast majority of doctor's visits right here. Exactly what you're looking at there. So bringing us back again to the gut. So what are some causes? What are some foods that will destroy your microbiome and cause leaky gut? Gluten. You guys know gluten? It's a gluey like substance.
Can I just go and
Oh, you want to take a picture? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, wait.
I was surprised you were not.
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, I was like, nobody's taking pictures.
I'm writing.
Okay, good. That's good. Grab it while it's hot.
I'm sure you're going to go, while they're taking pictures, I'm sure you're going to go over this, but just what's on my mind is the list of all of that. As I'm a therapist, and I'm constantly talking to people who can explain these things away, right? So, question probably answered later on is how do we engage ourselves, other people that we're talking about, or talking to see it as a microbiome issue, like leaky gut or leaky brain. When chronic fatigue, I have 2 kids at home. I'm always tired, right? Like, I'm always achy. I'm running around. Like, there's those complaints because of your circumstance,
Right.
rather than this could be something greater.
How do you make application?
Right.
How do you make application with the information?
Right.
Absolutely. Yep. That's where the rubber meets the road. So starting with this, these are some changes. And again, for a lot of people, this is like drinking out of a fire hose. For some of you sitting here, you're doing most of this. But for some of you, there are still more layers to be peeled back that we could do better. But you have to start somewhere. Starting with getting the bad stuff out and then getting the good stuff in is really the place to start with a lot of folks. Now, getting people to do that, again, I've worked with people for a long time. You're working with different personalities. Some people draw a line in the sand and like they change the next day, right? Some people you keep tell them, and then it's just like they'll do it for a couple of days and then they fall off. They do it for a couple of days and they fall off. And there's all types of people. I mean, you can't change people, but you can do the best you can. Give them what you got.
It's such a controversial discussion, health sometimes for people.
Yep.
It's like religion sometimes. Some people, it's just beliefs.
Right.
Sometimes.
And
Sounds of it.
yeah, you can only help those who want to be helped.
Right.
Exactly.
The idea that the foods that cause leaky gut, right? That's if you go into any one of our pantries and you're going to find probably all 7 of these things, right?
Yep.
And I think when you have somebody who's somewhat committed, not really committed, trying to make the commitment, asking them to change 7 things that are in their everyday exposure is like asking them to climb a mountain and they have no legs,
Right, it's not realistic.
Right.
Yeah. You can only do it one at a time. Now, are you talking about working with people like patients that you work with, or are you talking about your family, or is it?
Well, I'm a mental health therapist, but also myself, right?
Yep.
I gave birth to my daughter 6 months ago. Can't get rid of the aches and pains and all that stuff, right?
I'm gonna. Hopefully, we'll cover everything that you need as we go through. If not, I'll spend more time with you after. Yeah, definitely. But gluten and most grains highly inflammatory. I mean, even the good healthy grains. But most of the grains you guys know today, they're GMO. They're loaded with toxins. Cross hybridization, highly toxic. The grains that we have today, even if they're good healthy grains, they're not like they were, hundreds of years ago, or even the turn of the century. The soil is devoid of all the nutrients, and so highly inflammatory. Sugar, we know. Sugar, highly inflammatory. It's one of the worst things. I would start with sugar if it was me. If there was only one thing that you could start with, eliminate all sugar. You'll watch your life transform right before your eyes. Sugar causes.
Also honey through sugar or not?
Yeah, you can. I mean, honey's different. Yeah,
I mean,
honey,
it's not
organic
included
honey. Yeah,
It's not included under the sugar
right,
category.
right. So this type of sugar we're talking about is the type that causes candida and it causes more sugar cravings, creates a bacterial colony of its own. So, you know, again, pulling that out is huge. And artificial sweeteners are poison, cancer causing, highly acidic, conventional meat. What's today's meat, mystery meat loaded with?
Sodium.
Sodium, what else?
Nitrate.
Nitrates, what else?
I was just trying to understand what you exactly mean by conventional meat. You're talking about the
Conventional
toxins
meat?
that are in it?
Yeah, what do they put
Okay,
in
like,
it?
okay.
Hormones,
Dyes,
right?
yeah, all
Yeah.
that stuff, yeah.
Or you're not what you eat. You're what you ate. Like whatever they fed that cow or the chickens, they're feeding it GMO pellets. They're feeding it grains. You put a cow out in the field, it's not supposed to eat grains. It's supposed to eat what? Grass.
Yeah.
That's why you want to get grass-fed meat. So not only are you getting all the hormones and all of the toxins, but you're also getting the omega-3s, which we're supposed to have like a 1-to-1 balance of omega-3, which is anti-inflammatory, and omega-6, which is highly inflammatory. Today, we're like 1 to 16. We're way out of whack. And again, this drives inflammation at the surface of the gut and destroys the microbiome. So you want to have grass-fed meat, whether it's that or organic chicken, even the fish. You don't want to eat farm-raised fish. They're feeding it grain pellets. It really is a scary thought. Conventional dairy, same thing, loaded with the same problems. Refined vegetable oils. Vegetable oils used to be the craze. Now, again, they're highly inflammatory. The good oils, you guys know, they're extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, coconut oil, but you want to stay away from the vegetable oils, seed oils, soybean oil, cottonseed oil. You look for that stuff in the label, and that's where you start. When you're shopping, if you see that, get the alternative. Get something with the good oils. Tap water. What's in the tap water? Fluoride, chlorine. It destroys the microbiome. And you know, dentists tell you need the fluoride, but it may be good for your teeth, but it's not good for your microbiome. NSAIDs, antibiotics, skin and hair, nail cleaning products. So those are just some of the basic things. And you know, we all have access to more information today than we ever have. So I'm not really sharing anything with you specific that you don't know, but it's a basic place to start with cleaning up the mess that most of us have some degree of, which we really need to be bringing balance back to, right? So what are some foods that can help with leaky gut? Right, we want to get the wrong stuff out, get the good stuff in. Bone broth, raw, cultured, organic dairy, and all that stuff is fermented. What is it? Fermented, yeah. So fermented is going to be the key there, whether it's kefir, whether it's the raw butter, the cheese, sauerkraut. Just dig into the jar and get a couple of spoonfuls of that stuff. And the more that you get, the more beneficial it is to redeveloping and repopulating the good bacteria in there. Apple cider vinegar. Have you guys ever tried that? You either love it or you hate it. But you can dilute it in water. You just take it. You just dilute it in water. Another easy thing.
But don't you miss while it's diluted?
What's that?
Like if you dilute it, don't you miss
yeah.
some of the properties? Because people don't know about diluted. They will
Right.
take a whole cup, a little bit of.
Yeah. You're talking about like 3 ounces of water and then, you know, a tablespoon of the apple cider vinegar. Yeah. Good point. Chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp, organic, grass-fed beef and lamb, and wild-caught salmon. Remember, try to avoid the farm-raised. Okay? All right, so everybody's got the picture there? Good. All right, so now, what is the literal connection? We said the connection to the gut and the brain, the gut-brain axis, which is really affecting the microbiome, is something called the autonomic nervous system. How many of you guys have heard of the autonomic nervous system? A couple of you? Right. When you hear autonomic, I want you to think automatic. It's the part of your nervous system that works without you thinking about it. What's keeping you breathing right now? Your heart beating, your stomach's digesting food. It's doing a lot of these things, either making it faster or slower, fight or flight, rest and digest. And for most people, that system is out of balance. The vagus nerve is what controls this. And the vagus nerve is what they're finding now central in terms of a lot of the dysfunction that we're finding with the gut. So the vagus nerve, vagus, that word comes from the Latin word meaning wanderer. It starts right here, comes off of the first cervical vertebrae, goes out in front, and then it goes down, and it literally touches every organ in your body. And it controls it automatically. Your brain uses that nerve to keep everything in balance. And it is affected by the stress that you're under. And it's altered by that way. So if you look on the right side, you see all of the parts of the body that are affected by the sympathetic nervous system. That's your fight or flight. That's your survival part of the nervous system. If you're sympathetic dominance, it accelerates your heart rate. You have more anxiety. You have trouble sleeping. You don't sleep as well. You're fatigued all the time. Your digestion is off. It slows your digestion down. In other words, it prepares you for the lion or the bear that's chasing you, that's going to attack you. That's the programming there. But the other part is for rest, digest, and repair. And where do you think most people are living their lives? Which side? The survival, yeah. So this autonomic imbalance that you're going to find has a significant connection to a lot of the stress that we're under, and is also affected by how the vagus nerve handles that. Signs that you have autonomic imbalance: diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome, poor sleep, insomnia, irritability, anxiety, fibromyalgia, excessive sweating, manic depressive symptoms, focus, attention, hyperactivity deficit disorder, ADD, neurodevelopmental disorders. If you're low on the parasympathetic side, this is where we see depression, things slow down, constipation, hormonal issues, chronic fatigue, thyroid problems, adrenal fatigue, brain fog, memory loss. Kind of makes sense, right? One side, everything's sped up. The other side, everything is just slowing down. You have to have good autonomic balance if you're going to have good gut health and if you're going to have balanced overall health. So here's a researcher, a very prominent researcher. He speaks worldwide. And I'm not going to get into all the details with that loop, but it kind of shows you how the brain interacts with the gut and the gut interacts with the brain, and how stress actually alters the gut-brain axis, the gut-brain communication. Stress causes your body to release something called cortisol. How many of you guys have heard the word cortisol, right? Why is cortisol not good? I mean, cortisol is what wakes you up in the morning, but too much of it creates inflammation. Very good. And adrenal fatigue. And remember we said inflammation really is what drives all the diseases that we're experiencing today. So that's what's important about this. Other things that go with that are weight gain, because when cortisol goes up, it takes insulin up with it. And it takes you out of fat burning and puts you in fat storage. So that's why when you're stressed a lot, you tend to put on weight. And that's all related to this vagus nerve and the autonomic nervous system. So there are so many studies that are out there that they've been researching showing this. This is called psychobiotics. And what they did was they knew how beneficial the probiotics were to humans. So they did an experiment with mice. And mice exhibited symptoms of depression, anxiety, and they actually gave them probiotics. And they started to benefit from it. They saw the behavior of the mice change after they introduced the probiotics. Pretty neat, right? Then they went and severed the vagus nerve. And guess what happened to all the benefits? What happened to that effect immediately? Gone. Proving how the gut communicates with the brain and the brain communicates with the gut, and they're interdependent. And you can't have one without the other. So they do sever the vagus nerve in extreme cases, people with epilepsy, and now they're looking into actually other diseases, other chronic diseases. Cardiac autonomic dysfunction with patients with lupus, rheumatoid arthritis. We look at multiple sclerosis. Studies have been done on that with vagal tone. Alzheimer's disease, altered vagal tone, and the autoimmune problems that we see, all interrelated. Here's a study from the Journal of Internal Medicine, medical journal, and they were using vagal nerve stimulators to control inflammation. What is a vagal nerve stimulator? Do you know what they do? They cut you open right here, and they do a procedure, and they implant it there to actually stimulate the vagus nerve to cause a parasympathetic effect. Now, sounds like a novel idea, and in fact, it helps people. But what if there was another way to do that without having to have a surgery, a radical surgery? If you could do it more conventionally and safely. And that's what we need to look at if that is possible to do something like that. Journal of Physiology, here we go. The vagus nerve seems to be a good therapeutic target in what? Inflammatory conditions of the digestive tract, but also other inflammatory conditions such as rheumatoid arthritis. So this vagus nerve is huge. It's really on the cutting edge, and anything that you can do to bring vagal tone back to this situation will help strengthen that aspect of the body to heal itself. So what are some ways that you can improve your vagal tone? Positive social relationships. Remember when we went through COVID a couple of years ago and we were all isolated? What happened to people? Super depressed, yeah. More alcohol consumption, more drug consumption, more suicides, more depression.
Divorce,
Yeah, all that, yeah. Nothing good, that's for sure. Cold. How many of you do cold plunges? Yeah. So splashing cold water in your face, cold plunge, all parasympathetic effect. Yeah, it all brings balance to the vagal tone. Pretty cool, right, Carlos? Yes. Gargling. Yeah. Gargling. How many of you guys knew that? Gargling actually stimulates the vagal nerve. Yeah. Singing, chanting, humming. And it's interesting because, you know, when I take care of autistic children or children with attention deficit disorder, you know, I don't even, you know, they're different from the aspect of how they learn. They have to keep moving. And the reason why is because of the autonomic imbalance. And innately, what they're trying to do is calm their tone when they're moving around and chanting and humming and moving. Personally, I mean, my brother had to take medication for ADD. I don't know how I got away with it because, I mean, if I can't sit still for 5 minutes, that's a miracle. So, like, I'm always trying to move. I learn best when I move. If I have to sit in a chair, like, I literally turn a timer on my phone because I start going haywire if I sit for longer than 30 minutes. So I get up every 30 minutes. When I have to sit in front of a computer for hours, I get up every 30 minutes. And if I exercise in the morning, if I'm watching something, I'm learning, I am retaining a lot better. So vagal tone comes from movement. Massage, laughter, yoga, tai chi, deep breathing, right? Everybody take a deep breath. Doesn't that feel good?
I have a question.
Yes.
Gargling just with water or with anything in specific?
Apple cider vinegar.
No, just the act of gargling. Yeah, just the act. Yeah. And then exercise, of course.
How
And
often?
How often? Right? At least once daily.
Once a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All of these things.
Well,
Or
as many
most
as
of them.
Yeah, the more the better. You know, I mean, you don't have to go do all of them, but do as many as you can. And here's one more for you. Chiropractic. What? How the heck does chiropractic improve vagal tone? What is that all about? Well, I have somebody here who had rheumatoid arthritis. Patient came in, and I had no means and no intention of treating her rheumatoid arthritis. But through balancing her autonomic nervous system, you can sit.
Hi, Irina. So you were just telling me some improvements that you're having, and what was the condition that the doctors diagnosed you with long ago?
rheumatoid arthritis.
And what were the chief complaints that you were suffering from when you first came in?
Joint pains, headaches, back pain, depression. I couldn't move. I felt useless. I felt a lot of time depressed, not able to do anything.
What were some of the things that you tried to get help with before you came to our office?
I went to see my rheumatologist, and I was telling him about pains in my arms and my muscles, and he gave me muscle relaxer, which I didn't feel comfortable taking. So I kept on taking my medication, but I didn't want to increase the dosage, so I decided that I would try something different. And that's when you, Dr. Yachter, came to work to give us a nutrition course that I became very interested, and I decided to try it. And since I came and I visited you, and I've had a few adjustments now, the pain in my head is gone. My back feels a lot better. I feel I have more energy. My eyes were very dry, and my mouth is dry. I'm feeling a little, I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's fluid coming back in my eyes. And I also feel, I feel a lot better.
That's awesome.
All symptoms of autonomic imbalance. All symptoms. So all we did was get her nervous system functioning better. And so many of those problems improved. So lots of research on chiropractic and vagal tone. If you didn't know this, a healthy autonomic nervous system balance showing evidence after the correction of vertebral subluxation. What is vertebral? The vertebra, the bone. What is subluxation? Out of alignment. If bones go out of alignment, it can affect your nervous system. Why? Because the bones are there to protect the spinal cord and all the nerves. And by way of that, and your autonomic nervous system, that's how your body works. If the spine gets out of alignment, it gets in the way of your job, the body doing the job that it's supposed to. Chiropractic and vagal tone, in this study in the Journal of Chiropractic Medicine, neck adjustments had a parasympathetic vagal effect. I can't tell you, if I had a nickel for every patient after their first adjustment who told me that they went home and they slept the best that they've slept in as long as they can remember, right? The most common thing that I hear, you sleep better, you wake up, you have more energy. It's very, very common because of the effect on the autonomic nervous system. That's what it's from. And here's a very interesting study, Journal of Manipulative and Physiological Therapeutics. Chiropractic and adjustments, the effect of decreased inflammation following the adjustment, the reduction of pro-inflammatory cytokines. How many of you guys have ever heard cytokine? Right? Cytokine is the molecules that promote inflammation in your body. Your body generates cytokines, and especially autoimmune responses when it attacks itself. That's where inflammation comes from. Now, sometimes it's good when your body's fighting off germs, bacteria, viruses, but in an autoimmune condition, remember, your body's attacking itself. So after adjustments, the inflammation subsides. And again, I don't treat inflammation. I don't treat any disease, any disorders. It's removing interference so that the body can heal itself. And how a person heals, when they heal, how they heal, what symptoms go away, different for everyone. The last lady I showed you, very different from this lady. This lady had scleroderma. That's one of the worst autoimmune diseases that you could have. When she holds her hand up, you'll see how discolored it is and disfigured and swollen. It's by far one of the worst.
Rosie, I just wanted you to tell your story very briefly. You came in here only a couple of weeks ago. You were referred in. And what was the diagnosis that you were given years ago?
Sclerosis, scleroderma.
Yes, and how long have you been living with that?
Since 2002.
And how has it affected your life?
Severely. I can't do the most simplest thing is dress myself, tie my shoelaces. It's hard to shower, hard to reach, clean my own legs.
And so you've been under care now for just a couple of weeks. What are some of the changes and improvements that you're seeing now?
Amazing changes. I can, with less difficulty and less pain, which was my main complaint, put on my shoes, dress my socks. I have more movement. I can actually feel myself being able to reach and wash my own back. I can carry out the garbage. I always had to call my neighbor to take out my can. I couldn't do that. Even cutting an onion was quite difficult.
I also noticed the circulation in your hands is improving, the color's returning.
Yes.
And things are starting to look better and better.
Yes.
So I'm just so glad that you're willing to share your testimonial with us, and the best.
That was a bad case. That was horrible. Can you imagine not being able to do those things? I mean, and she started to live her life again. And there's so many people out there that have no idea what we're talking about. You know, it's sad. They don't know. They're hurt. They're hopeless. They're in despair. They're sick. They're suffering. They don't know about any of this. It's important to share what you learned tonight. You learning something important? Good, good. So what is subluxation? It's like I said, it's when the bones shift out of alignment, it causes a negative neurophysiological effect. So some of the effects can cause neuroplastic changes. Neuroplastic has to do more with your brain, and we know through chiropractic adjustments that it also alters the prefrontal cortex. Some studies register as much as a 20% improvement with that. But it can also cause suffering in that area also, because it can obstruct the cerebrospinal fluid. It can put mechanical tension on the brainstem. And guess what? That's exactly what caused my dad's problem. Remember I told you my dad had headaches? He dove into a lake, and at the bottom of the lake there was a cast iron tub. He didn't know it was there. And the impact to his skull, it fractured his skull, but it shifted the top bone out of alignment in his neck. And not only did it cause his vagus nerve to become imbalanced, but it also obstructed the vertebral artery. It kinked it, which caused an obstruction to the normal blood supply to his head. And that's why he suffered for 40 years, until I came home from chiropractic school, and I did on him what I was practicing on my friends. I hadn't even graduated yet. I gave him his first adjustment. That was his last headache 40 years ago. So, why does subluxation occur most frequently at the top part? There's no disc above C1, and there's no disc below. It's held together only by ligaments. And so think about the thousands of times that we fall when we're learning to walk as kids, let alone get delivered from the birth canal with hands, vacuum extractor, forceps. We have car accidents, we have falls, we have sports injuries. There's ligament damage, there's instability there. With a lot, it's very common. It's very common. And it can be the source of everything that we're talking about tonight as far as autonomic dysfunction. This is what we're talking about. One way that you can detect that, if there is subluxation, is using thermography. This is NASA space technology. We roll it along the surface of your spine and your neck, and it can show imbalances in heat patterns. Why? Because the blood vessels at the surface of your skin are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. And aberrations in heat patterns are caused by aberration in nerve supply to the surface of the skin. Did you know that? Yeah. So if you look at the one on top, clearly that's different from the one on the bottom. The one on the bottom is a more normal pattern. It's balanced. You look at the one on the top, it's all over the place. So when somebody comes in, that's part of the diagnostics that I do. Do all chiropractors do that? No. But we do that here because clearly we're looking for, what the causes of a person being sick. And the studies go along with that. Skin temperature differentials are associated with subluxation. We know this. Heart rate variability. How many of you guys have heard of heart rate variability? Never heard of it? Okay. Athletes very commonly use it to determine their state of readiness before they engage in their workout for the day. How much stress their body can handle. But it also tells us a lot about the balance of a person's autonomic nervous system. And so I use it on my patients to see how they're progressing, to see where they start and see how they're progressing as far as the balance goes. It tells you if you have low heart rate variability. What's heart rate variability? What does that mean? How variable your heart rate is. If your heart rate is rigid, it's not flexible, it's not adaptable to stress. And that means all of your autonomic system is rigid. All of your autonomic nervous system is rigid. You can't adapt to stress. That's not good, is it? But if it's flexible, if it's adaptable, if you're adaptable to your environment, you can handle stress better. And if you can handle stress better, what does that do to your risk factor for sickness and disease? What does it do for your healing potential? So you want to have high heart rate variability, and that's another test that we do in the office to look at neurological health and healing to see how a person is progressing. So when we do these, we don't just do them when we start, we do follow-up progress evaluations. And this is a way that we can track someone's progress. Literature review, in this irritable bowel study, they found that symptoms that may be the result of changes in autonomic nervous system functioning with irritable bowel patients. In this one, depression and anxiety disorders exhibit abnormally low heart rate variability compared with non-psychiatric controls. Here's for fibromyalgia. Patients show more heart rate variability aberrances and increased sympathetic activity. And on this one, patients suffering from major depressive disorders show profound what? Autonomic dysfunction. So what does that tell you? It's pretty hard to be as healthy as you possibly can if you don't address which system? Your nervous system, right? It's amazing. You go to the doctor every year, they check your blood pressure, your cholesterol. I mean, we need medical doctors. You know, we should be getting our regular tests, but what's the one thing that they never check? Your nervous system. They never check it. So here's a good plan for you to make application with what you've learned tonight. Step one, make sure that your body's getting the right information. Make sure that your nervous system is working properly. Step two, make sure you get the wrong foods out, like we talked about, get the right foods in. You need to heal your gut, you need to heal your brain, you need to get inflammation under control. You need to heal and seal the gut. Number three. Number four, detox. Detox is important. Now, this is for some people, may not have the information necessary. This really wasn't a detox workshop tonight. That's for another place, another time. That's something I can help you with. And there are very robust programs that go about it safely. And I have experience with this myself, personally. You don't want to do detox the wrong way. It can be a miserable experience. It can take you from feeling lousy to like near death and wish you never even stepped in that arena. So there's a right way to do it, and I don't have the time tonight, but I can help you if you have a question with that. But this is the most important thing that you need for healing is what? Time. You need time. So hopefully you've got a good start tonight, but getting back with subluxation, what are the causes? What can cause the vertebrae to shift out of alignment in your neck or your back? What type of things?
Car accident.
Sitting at your desk, very good. What else?
Yeah, that.
Birth process. Yeah, it's just medical studies. Osteopathic studies, they did this, 1,250 infants evaluated the first 5 days of life, found that what percent? 90% suffered birth trauma, strain through the neck and cranial areas. So it's very common. Another study, 1,000 infants were checked in the first month of life. 80% of them were found to have vertebral misalignments in the upper neck. Kids need to be checked. Parents don't know that, and grow up with all kinds of allergies and asthma and ear infections, and I don't know. I hate to tell you, my kids never had to do any of that stuff. Thank goodness. I adjusted them since day one, and the parents that I educate, and they see the same thing. There's a big difference in kids when they have healthy autonomic balance. There's a lot to be said for that. So there's your looking down at your phone, right? At your desk. Slips, falls, trips, sports injuries, fender benders, and then especially major car accidents. That one reminds me of a lady that I took care of. I'm going to tell you the story, and then I'm going to wrap it up. But I learned a long time ago that subluxations don't always have to come up from here. They can happen in places below the first vertebrae. The lady walked into my office, she was like this, "Dr. Yachter, my back is killing me, can you help me?" I said, "What happened?" She's like, "I don't know, I just woke up like that and my back is just killing me, I can't stand up straight." So I took her in the back and I did an exam and I got an x-ray. And I took the x-ray and the x-ray kind of looked like that. The bone was out of alignment and the way it was grotesquely twisted and turned and wrenched out of alignment, I knew it was putting pressure on the nerve. So I said, "Georgia, I think I found what's going on here. Come and lay down." So I laid her on the table, very gently, as gently as I possibly could. I began to shift the bone in the right direction to take the pressure off the nerve. And I felt it move. It was just like butter. It just went right under my hand, just moved. I'm like, okay, come on up, George, just come up off the table. Well, she stands up. She goes from this, standing straight up, just like that. Like, oh, wow. She's like, that's it? Are you done? I said, yeah, I'm done. I said, I didn't know what she was going to say, but she's like, okay. I said, come back tomorrow. Let me just check up on you, make sure you're doing okay. So she leaves. About an hour later, somebody opens the front door, screaming at the top of their lungs. One of your patients is passed out in her car. I saw you leave your office an hour ago. So I ran out there, and there she is. She's slumped over the steering wheel. And I ran back inside, called the ambulance, and as I'm putting the phone down, I'm thinking to myself, wait, didn't I see she had an insulin pump on? When she stood up, I couldn't see it when she was bent over. When she stood up, I noticed she had an insulin pump on. She's diabetic. I'll bet it has something to do with her blood sugar. So I went and I got some orange juice. And I went outside and I put it on her lips. And you know what happened? Started coming to. And I was like, phew, thank goodness. And then the ambulance came. And then all reality hit me. There goes my patient in an ambulance. That is not good. What did I do wrong? I couldn't sleep that night. I was really upset. I thought I helped her. She stood up straight. She walked out a lot better than she walked in. But then she wound up in the hospital. So I was blaming myself for something I couldn't understand. And I went home, came in the office early the next day, trying to study, figure everything out. Before I know it, what happens? It's a busy morning. The front door opens. Who is it? Georgia. She opens the door. She has this big smile on her face. She looks 10 years younger. And she makes a beeline for me. And she just puts her arms around me and says, Doctor, I don't know what you did yesterday, but I haven't slept this good and felt this good in 40 years. Can I have another adjustment? I said, oh my goodness, I'm so worried about this. Come on over here. I said, I'm going to adjust you, but I need to show you something. And I took her over here. I said, Georgia, you see on your x-ray there, that pinched nerve there, I was trying to help you with that to get you to feel better. But when I was studying your film, I went over, you see that area right there on the chart? You see where that nerve is being pinched, causing your back to hurt. It's the same nerve going to your pancreas and your stomach. And I think when I opened up the nerve channel, it started restoring function to your pancreas, and your pancreas started making insulin again, but your pump was still on, so you got too much. She said, that makes sense. Are you going to adjust me now or what? So, whatever she says. So I took care of her. She kept coming. Week after week, I was taking care of her. I do a progress evaluation 4 weeks later. She's like, yeah, I'm feeling great. By the way, my endocrinologist reduced my insulin requirements. I said, really? She's like, yeah, I was at 8 units. She's like, I'm down to 5. I'm like, okay. She went from 8 units down to 5 units, 3 units, and then eventually 0.8 units in a period of 5 months. She went from 8 units to 0.8 units in 5 months. Her endocrinologist called me on the phone. Says, hey, just wanted to let you know we have Georgia eligible for a special study at the University of Miami. We never saw a type 1 brittle diabetic, somebody who's been diabetic for 40 years. We've never seen somebody improve like that. We'd like to know if you're willing to share your clinical protocol. And I said, no. Yeah. So in all seriousness, I explained to him that I wasn't treating her diabetes. Right. Was I trying to cure her diabetes? No. All I was trying to do is find and remove the interference from what was causing her back to hurt. And in the process of that, the same nerve that was causing her pain was also the same nerves that was controlling the function and healing in her body. And all I did was remove the interference to that. And all of a sudden, the body started doing what it knew how to do. It healed. And you know, I honestly, I could tell you stories of literally every sickness or disease known to mankind, which you could point the finger at me and say, yeah, you cured that with your adjustment. No, never cured anything. All I did was find and remove the interference. The body heals itself. And that's what I want to share with you. Most people don't know that most of the nerves that emanate from your spine, they're not pain sensitive. Most of those nerves are for controlling the organs and for growth and repair. Only 6% of those nerves feel pain. What percent? 6%. So if you got vertebrae shifted out of alignment and you don't know it and you don't feel it, what's happening to the function at some parts of the body that are being affected? You don't know until you have a symptom. And then what? Then it's too late. Then we're treating those effects. But most of the people that I've taken care of over the last 30 years, once they fix the problem, then they get regular checkups. Don't you go to a dentist, right? Before you have cavities, you get your teeth cleaned. You do it preventatively. Right. If people were getting their spine checked on a regular basis, you can prevent a lot of problems. Not just pain, but a lot of health problems too. Mm-hmm. Studies show that people who are under regular maintenance care, they go to the doctors less, they go to the hospitals less, they save money on insurance, save money on prescription drugs. Did you know that? Most people don't know that. So that's what I wanted to share with you. You know, I mean, if somebody would have told her to have her spine checked 40 years earlier, she may not have been diabetic. She probably wouldn't have. But those are the things that cause it, and that's what I wanted to share with you. So what's next? How do you make application with this? Well, if you have a chiropractor that you go to, you want to make sure that you go more than every once in a blue moon. Probably a good idea, right? Maybe more than once annually. I don't know. But people who get their spine checked regularly, they see the benefits from that. If you haven't had your nerve system checked, if you don't know what the autonomic balance looks like for you, that could be a causative factor if you're suffering from an autoimmune condition. And wouldn't it make sense from everything that I went over tonight that you'd be better off without that if that was a causative factor involved? Yeah. And remember, if you address the nervous system and you address the gut, you address the detoxification system and your immune system, you put that all together, now you've got a proactive plan. But what's at the center of that? The nervous system. You can eat good and exercise till the cows come home. But if you've got nerve supply being choked off, it's all for naught, you know? So the most important part is that information. And so what's next is really getting that checked. And what we do to check that is the scans, the heart rate variability. Now, when you come in as a new patient, I'll do a consultation. We get a family history, health history. Then we go over and we do the scans. And I'll look at the scans and then I'll talk to you what I'm finding with that. And then I check your posture. We check the range of motion in the spine. And if it looks like there's subluxation there, then I'll probably recommend that we take an x-ray to confirm that. And then we have all these tests and we put that all together. I study everything very carefully and thoroughly and put together a very specific report of findings. And then you come back on the next visit and I go over all of the results of the test with you. If we find something that I can help you with that may be related to any of the conditions that you may have, then I'll put together a plan for you, a game plan for you of how you can improve. Maybe some of you here, you don't have any health problems. Guess what? That's the best place to start. What is it worth to prevent sickness and disease before it has a chance to rear its ugly head? You know? And you have a scan like that, you may not have a lick of pain, and you have a scan like that or some sort of abnormality, when would you want to get started getting that fixed? Sooner than later, right? So if you went to the hospital and you had all these tests done, or a doctor's office, so what do you think they charge for something like that? Like if you had x-rays done and all that stuff at the hospital, how much do they usually charge for something like that? Hundreds, thousands, yeah. So obviously you're here for a reason. We're doing a special event and I want to give you an opportunity to make application with everything that you've learned tonight. So when we do events like this, normally the charge for all these things in our office is way upwards of $400. And normally there's a waiting list. I mean, it takes a couple of weeks to get an appointment. My new patient appointment spots are very limited. But we did make appointments. We cleared our schedule for those of you guys who will need to do that for the next couple of weeks. And the special pricing for that is $150. It's $150 for the individual. That includes both days, all the diagnostic testing and the report of findings. It's $250 for a family. So you may have a husband, a spouse, or a family member, children, whatever. And you think what you learned tonight benefited from it. You're more than welcome to take advantage and make the appointment for more than one person. If you have loved ones that are not local and you want me to help you connect them with somebody who does this kind of work wherever they are, let me know. You know, most chiropractors don't do this type of stuff. A lot of them do, you know, just the auto injuries, accidents, and you know, they have different specialties. We focus on neurological improvement, and so it's important to make sure you know you're going to find what you're looking for, right? So that's what it looks like. Other questions that I get: do you take my insurance? So I'm not in network with any insurance companies, and the way that works out for most folks is that you may have insurance that will reimburse you according to your contract. So what we do is we give our patients something called a super bill. It's an itemized bill, and you give it to your insurance company, and they give you reimbursement according to your contract. Financially, I mean, most of our patients, 95% of our patients are on some kind of payment plan. Nobody pays per visit every time they come in. But on average, most folks are paying somewhere between $250, maybe $350 a month, right? Something in that range. But it's different for everybody. It really depends on your condition, what we find with your testing, and then we blueprint a plan for you. It's not can plan, it's different for everybody. But hopefully that kind of gives you guys an idea, and then we go from there. The offer is good for tonight only, and I don't say that to be a jerk or to create pressure for you. I just do that to be realistic. You know, for those of you who are ready to, you know, take action and commit to making a difference, a huge difference in your life and your health, and taking a major step, a big improvement, massive difference that you see with this, make the commitment. You know, I mean, walk up to the front desk, make the appointment. For the people who've told us in the past, well, I'll call you. That day never comes. So let's just be honest, let's be real. The people who are here tonight, if you're committed, make the appointment. Even if you have to change it, you know, just don't leave here without not making an appointment. Make the appointment. If we can work with you, it's not a problem as far as which day or whatever, but we'll do that. And then, and that's it. So some of you may have some questions. In the interest of time, I want to let you guys go. You've been very generous with your time tonight. I went a little bit over. But if you have any individual questions, I'll stay here. But I'm going to let the group go tonight. What I want you to do is just, Tamara and Deborah up there, they have the clipboards. You tell them what day, what time works best for you. They're going to help you before you leave. So I'm going to have you stand up and just walk up to them and let them help you before you go now, okay? Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.